Welcome to the narrated step-by-step tutorial for my painting Ocean Pine. The photograph on the right was the reference and inspiration for this painting. It's a simple composition consisting of a lone pine tree sitting on the coast overlooking the ocean. I did decide to make one slight change to the composition. If you look on the right side, you'll see that there's a small piece of land that sticks out on that side. I decided it would be more interesting if that extended out and went behind the pine tree and came out on the other side. I begin by drawing a light pencil sketch using a B pencil on an 8 by 10 inch sheet of 140 pound cold press Laminaquarelle watercolor paper. All I'm drawing is just a few of the major shapes, giving indication of where the horizon line is. I'm showing the placement of the pine tree, just using a vertical line to give the indication of the placement and height. And then I'm going to do a light drawing, give an indication of where the ground cover is in the foreground. And I'm not going to draw much more. All the rest is going to be done in my painting process. The colors that I'm using for my painting are cerulean blue, royal blue, sap green, raw sienna, pyrrole red, and burnt sienna. I'm going to begin by painting my sky. This is cerulean blue. I'm using a round wash brush. This is a jumbo round small, one of the silver black velvet brushes I like. And you can see that I'm kind of randomly putting the paint around the sky area here. I'm going to have this be a kind of a blue sky, partly cloudy day. So I apply my cerulean blue, then I take my fine mist spray bottle and I just soften those edges up. You always want to be aware of the moisture content in your paper, and after applying the fine mist spray, I have quite a bit of water coming down my page, so I just use my a damp brush and Kleenex, I use a tissue just to pick up the excess. Now that I've applied this, you can see how it gives the suggestion of kind of a partly cloudy day, and I'm going to take my hairdryer and I'm going to dry it, and it's going to lighten up a little bit. So here the paper is completely dry, and now I'm going to give an indication of where the ocean is. And to do this, I'm using a mixture of sap green and royal blue. It gives a nice blue-green tone. As I paint this, I'm going to use horizontal brush strokes to help describe the ocean and give the suggestion of that flatness of the water laying out there. As I apply this wash, I want to have some variation in the color to make it more interesting. So as I load my brush, I take from different areas of my palette and a mixture that leans a little more towards blue to one that leans a little bit more towards green, and it gives some subtle variation in the wash. As I bring this wash down the page, I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. You normally don't want something in a scene like this with the water, you don't want it to be the same value in the distance as it is closer to the foreground. So I'm going to lighten that up. I'm going to use a fine mist spray here and soften that edge. And I'm bringing this wash down. When I painted my sky, I brought the sky over where the horizon line is. I want to stop and create a hard line right at the edge of the sea. And the same is true here. I'm painting the sea and I'm softening that edge and I'm bringing it into the area where the foreground is going to be painted. But I know as I come down from the sky to the sea to the foreground, my values are going to be darker, and I don't have to worry about this showing through unless I create a real hard edge. So I just paint over top as I go. I'm going to begin to paint the pine tree itself. I'm using a quill brush that I like to use. It's got a nice point, holds quite a bit of paint, and I'm working with a very dark valued mixture of sap green, pyrrole red, and royal blue. The royal blue gives a nice dark value to the mixture. And I'm just giving the indication of the top of the pine tree and the branches that comes down. And the further I get down, it'll start to become a more solid shape. You can see that the tree's starting to fill out here as a large shape, and I'm going to take a fine mist spray bottle, the fine mist spray that I like to use sometimes, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a spray around some of the edges of what I've painted, and it'll soften it up a little bit and diffuse that color off the edge a little, just to give it just a little bit of a glow of that green tone. I'm going to take some of that same mixture and start to paint the edge here of the ground cover and some of these like briar that's on the coastline. And as I start to paint this area, I'm going to start to bring in some warmer tones also with some raw sienna, a little burnt sienna, and a little Pyrrole red. I'm going to insert an image of my palette. You can see the variety that I have mixed on my palette. And this allows me to load my brush with quite a variety of colors as I work across the painting itself. And when I'm doing a wash, I'll just come back and if I want to change color in that wash, I'll just load my brush up with from a different area of the mixture that I have on my palette, and then just bring it right to the paper and continue on with my wash. You can see right there how I brought in a red tone. And but it's still part of the same wash. Quite trying to get a variety of colors going in this one wash in this one large shape. Here I'm continuing to fill this shape. So this pine tree and the ground cover and the bushes that are here right on the edge of this composition are all pretty much just one large shape. At the moment, this is a very flat shape, and I want to give some dimension to it. So I'm going to use my plastic scraping tool. The wash is still wet, and I'm going to scrape into that and vertically to give it use some direction to help bring some dimension to this otherwise flat shape. So I'm using the scraping tool to scrape some larger areas, and then I'm using it to make some linear marks that give the suggestion of grass or weeds or branches, but it starts to give some dimension to what would otherwise be just a kind of a flat shape. As I do this, you can see that I'm trying to get some variation in the types of marks that I'm making. I'm using my plastic scraper, but I'm using different edges as I make some of these marks. The series that I'm making right now are a wider linear mark. The ones to the left are much narrower but still linear, given the suggestion of grass. And there's some areas where I've made more dimensional shape-like scrapes, such as right to the left there, my plastic tool. Here I'm going to do a few more marks with a scraper, and the optimal time to do this tends to be when the paint is still damp on the page and the paper's damp but not saturated. It tends to have a bit of a sheen at the right time, not a real high gloss from a lot of water, but just a damp sheen. I'm going to come back in on top of what I've done with a darker value. This is a mixture that has a lot of royal blue in it, and I'm just going to strengthen some of the tree shape with this darker value and try and give a little bit more dimension to this shape so it's not as flat. I'm taking some of this same dark tone and a little bit of this ground cover and briars and bushes that are here. Again, help build a little bit of dimension and some depth to this area. I'm going to take small angled flat brush that I have. It's nylon and it's damp. And I'm just going to do a little bit of lifting to give the indication of the trunk of this pine tree. Still working them with the very dark value and just doing a little bit of negative painting here, painting around some of these lighter shapes to create a little bit more contrast and make some of those areas a little bit more pronounced, and again build a little bit of depth into this otherwise flat shape. Going to carry some of that negative painting over into the other areas here. Just taking a dark value and painting around some of these lighter marks that I scraped earlier in my painting process. Now I'm going to paint the peninsula, the piece of land that was sticking out in the photograph, and the one that I decided I was going to extend beyond this tree. And I'm using a mixture of sap green and royal blue, leaning more towards the royal blue. And I want this to be a fairly flat wash that it's a cool tone, and it just gives a suggestion that it's in the distance because there's not a lot of detail on it. It's just a shape. So there you have my painting, Ocean Pine. It was a simple composition that doesn't require a lot of drawing. I started with the very basic shapes, a simple drawing, and developed a lot of this as I painted. The scraping, the textures, the direction, all part of the painting process. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, check out Rick Stewart's Watercolor Friends and Subscribers on Facebook. And if you ever have questions about my materials, you can always go to my website, rstewartsart.com, and look on the studio page where I list all my materials. And if you have a specific question, you can email me at contact@rstewartsart@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.